They had won 164 battles, not just simple victories but full domination. The Zarn dominion was feared across the galaxy. From the icy moons of Jakor to the burning skies of Dronai, they had crushed every species that dared resist. Every time a New World-raised weapons the Zarn fleet arrived, burned their skies, destroyed their armies, and left nothing but smoke. They called themselves the rightful rulers of the stars. The galaxy believed it, because no one could stop them. Now, Earth was next. The High Admiral of the Zarn, a tall, four-eyed beast named Kultarak, stood at the center of his command ship. His voice echoed across the war bridge as he laughed. "Another soft planet. Another weak race," he said. "They hide behind their oceans and forests. They don't even have ships worth our notice." The fleet behind him was massive, over 4,000 ships, cruisers, battleships, carriers, destroyers, all lined up in perfect formation. Each ship bore the golden symbol of victory, a burning star, surrounded by a ring of conquered planets. Their engines lit up space like a second sun. Alien commanders reported to Kultarak one by one. Sector sweep complete. No resistance in deep space. Earth scanners are quiet. Kultarak grinned. His long claws tapped the edge of his chair. "They don't even know we're here yet," he said. But they were wrong. On Earth, humans were watching. Deep below the oceans, inside a secret base called Leviathan Core, General Reeves stood before a hologram of the enemy fleet. Beside him, engineers, captains, and scientists stared at the same image. "They're coming fast," Reeves said. "They think we're weak." The room was silent, then he added, "Good. Let them think that." Earth had hidden its power for years. The galaxy thought humans were small, quiet, and slow to act. But Earth had learned. Humans watched every war from a distance. They studied every alien move, and then they began building. Not in orbit, but in the shadows. Ships crafted in asteroid fields. Weapons tested inside volcanic craters. The galaxy never saw Earth's true strength, because humans never wanted war. But now, war had arrived. Above, the Zarn fleet pushed closer. Their scanners reached Earth's edge, expecting to find weak satellites and slow orbital stations. Instead, they found silence. No defense grid turned on, no warning lights, no fleets rose to meet them. It made Kultarak laugh harder. "They haven't even launched fighters," he mocked. "This will be our fastest conquest yet." The alien commander sent the first wave. Scout ships, fast and sharp. They swept past Earth's moon, scanning the blue planet below. Still nothing aboard the main bridge. Commander Varric frowned. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. "They should have responded by now." Kultarak waved him off. "They're cowards. They'll surrender when they see our guns." He leaned forward, eyes glowing red. "Prepare the bombardment." Just before the first shot fired, something flickered, a ripple in space near them. Asteroid belt, then another, and another. The Zarn screens began lighting up. Unknown signals, strange energy spikes. Kultarak rose from his chair, eyes narrowing. "What is that?" The comms officer panicked. "Something's coming out of the belt." Multiple contacts. One by one, black shapes emerged from the shadows, massive warships, shaped like blades and towers, sleek, quiet, and deadly. They had no insignias, no lights, only cold steel and strange glowing cores. The ships were Terran. The first human dreadnought turned slowly, aiming its weapons toward the Zarn fleet. Its name was written in dull gray across the hull. "TNS Retribution." Kultarak's voice dropped. That's not a civilian ship." More signals followed. "TNS Vengeance, TNS Ironhold, TNS Eclipse." The alien fleet that had never known fear began to feel something new. Silence covered space for 5 full seconds, then the humans spoke. One voice echoed across all alien comms, calm and direct. "This is Earth Defense Fleet. You are trespassing." Kultarak growled. "Fire on them now." But before his command could reach all ships, the Retribution fired first. A single pulse of light cut through space. One alien cruiser vanished in a flash. No explosion, just silence and then chaos. The war had begun, and for the first time in 164 battles, the Zarn were not the hunters, they were the hunted, and Earth Earth was ready. The Zarn had never known fear. But now they didn't know what they were facing. Their cruisers floated in space, some drifting from formation, others locked weapons on the new threat, but hesitated. Earth had said only one thing: "You are trespassing." And then a cruiser vanished. Just like that. One pulse, one death, no warning, no trail. But after that, nothing else came. The human fleet just stood there, silent, unmoving. The Zarn didn't know what to do. Inside the YI flagship, Admiral Koltarak paced. His claws clicked against the black floor as he growled. "Why aren't they attacking?" he shouted. Commander Varric stood beside him, eyes locked on the screen. "They're just watching us," he said slowly. "Like hunters." The word hunters was strange coming from a Zarn officer, but no one corrected him. The alien fleet had expected a quick burn of the planet. They expected surrender signals, humans begging, orbital stations shutting down. Instead, Earth responded with silence. No more warnings, no noise, no movement from the planet. It was like Earth had turned its face away from the stars, leaving only the steel eyes of its dreadnoughts to stare forward, and that silence made even seasoned alien captains uncomfortable. In space, silence wasn't normal. Silence meant something was coming. Koltarak slammed his fist against the panel. "They're bluffing," he barked. "They can't match our fleet in numbers, it's a scare tactic." But even as he said it, he knew something was off. The Terran ships were not normal ships. They had no glowing engines, no noise trails, no shields buzzing in the scanners. They looked like statues of war, carved from black ice, hiding something ancient and dangerous. Meanwhile, on Earth, everything was still. The cities had not powered up their shields. No civilians were fleeing. No emergency broadcasts, no military announcements, just peace. A farmer in Iowa looked up from his field and saw distant flashes in the sky. A school teacher in Tokyo paused mid-lesson, glancing at a sudden flicker in the classroom's window. But no panic came. That's because they knew Earth didn't need to scream. It didn't need to threaten. It had already prepared. Deep under the surface, in bunkers the galaxy never knew about, Earth's oldest defense systems were waiting, not to protect but to punish. Aboard the human dreadnought Retribution, Captain Doyle sat quietly, watching the enemy screens. He spoke only once to his second-in-command. "They're afraid," the young officer blinked. "But they have the numbers, sir." Doyle nodded, eyes never leaving the alien formation. "Yes," he said, "but fear doesn't count ships." Then he said something colder. "We don't want surrender, we want them to remember." Back in orbit, the Zarn tried again. They sent drones forward to scan the Terran dreadnoughts. The drones vanished without a trace. They didn't even have time to send back data. Commander Varric's scales turned pale. His voice dropped. "This is not war," he whispered. "This is judgment." Koltarak roared in frustration. "I will not be stared down by primitives." He ordered the fleet to form a wall, cannons out, shields raised, but Earth still didn't fire. The Retribution simply adjusted its angle slightly, and the rest of the Terran ships copied the motion. A silent, slow shift. No message, no threat. Just a move. The Zarn ships backed off slowly. The galaxy was watching. Other empires picked up the signals, encrypted codes bouncing across relay stations. Everyone had assumed Earth was backward, slow, undeveloped. Now they all watched Earth face, the most powerful fleet the galaxy had seen, and not fire a single shot, and yet Earth was winning, because the silence was louder than war. Back inside the command deck of the Zarn flagship, the crew felt it. They had never been this unsure. This wasn't like the weak Tiraki, who cried when fire rained on their cities. This wasn't like the mountain people of Yashara, who begged as their homes melted. This was different. Earth said nothing, and that made it worse. For creatures that had always heard screams, silence was the scariest sound of all. Koltarak growled again. "Tell the fleet to prepare." "Prepare for what, sir?" Varric asked. The Admiral stared ahead, claws flexing. "I don't know," he said. "But whatever it is, it's not going to be like any of our 1-64 victories." Outside, the Terran dreadnoughts waited, engines silent, weapons locked, and Earth remained quiet. The countdown to destruction had begun. But no one knew. It had already started. Kultarik had never hesitated before. In all 164 battles, he was always the first to strike. His enemies always fell back, confused and broken. His fleet always won. But this time, something felt wrong. His hand hovered over the strike command. His eyes stared at the Terran dreadnoughts ahead, unmoving and silent. Then he snarled, "Fire." At once the Zarn fleet unleashed its fury. Hundreds of plasma torpedoes burst into space. Streams of energy, missiles, and wave cannons shot toward the Terran ships. The sky lit up like a storm. Across space it looked like a tidal wave of fire rushing toward the Earth defenders. Kultarik smiled wide, claws tight with pride. No one survives a first strike from the Dominion, he said to himself. But then something happened. The Terran fleet didn't move. Not a single ship turned. Not a single shield activated. They just waited. And then, all the alien fire vanished one by one. Torpedoes disappeared, missiles blinked out, beams of energy collapsed before reaching the targets. It was like the space around the human ships had swallowed everything. The Zarn bridge crew stared in disbelief. Where did the shots go? Commander Varric gasped. Kultarik growled. They must have cloaked shields. Something new. Some kind of trap. Back aboard the TNS Retribution, Captain Doyle tapped a single button. Now, he said quietly. The Terran fleet lit up. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. Each ship simply opened a new weapon bay. And from the dark silence, a pulse launched. Only one pulse from each dreadnought. It moved slow. Too slow to be dangerous. The Zarn laughed. That's it? One officer said, That's all they... The pulse hit the first cruiser. It didn't explode. It didn't even spark. It just turned gray, then black, then dust. The entire ship was erased in a second. Gone. Nothing remained. Not even heat. The crew went silent. Then another pulse hit a destroyer. Same result. No fire. No wreckage. Just silence. Kultarik roared in confusion. What kind of weapon is that? No one answered. No one knew. The rest of the Zarn fleet began backing up. But the Terran ships were no longer waiting. Now they were moving. Not fast. Not in chaos. Each dreadnought glided forward in perfect formation, silent and slow, like ghosts, and they fired again. This time the pulses moved toward 10 ships. All vanished. No noise, no screams, just gone. Kultarik's voice cracked. Fall back, fall back. The order went out, but it was too late. The Terran fleet had already locked them in. From behind, more human ships decloaked. Surrounding the Dominion's warships like wolves circling wounded prey, the Zarn fleet began to break apart. Cruisers collided in panic, fighters scattered, commanders yelled over each other trying to flee. On board TNS Ironhold, Admiral Briggs watched calmly. We warned them, she said. They didn't listen. A junior officer asked, Should we accept surrender codes if they come? Briggs shook her head. No, she replied. Not today. Back on the Zarn flagship, chaos had replaced confidence. The crew tried to stabilize systems, activate backup shields, reroute power. Nothing worked. Earth's weapons weren't physical. They weren't traditional. They were something else, something older, something final. Kultarik looked at the stars beyond, now filled with black ships and glowing silence. He whispered to himself, This isn't war. And he was right, it wasn't. It was a message. It was Earth's first strike. Not to win, but to remind the galaxy that it had watched too long, judged too fast, and pushed too far. This time, Earth wasn't backing down. This time, Earth struck first. And this time, no one would forget it. Space was on fire, but the Terran fleet moved like it was cold. No shaking, no panic, just control. The black steel hulls of the human dreadnoughts slid through the battlefield like shadows. Alien ships twisted and spun, trying to avoid them. But the humans didn't chase. They didn't need to. Each dreadnought rose into position, calm and steady, like they were following an old plan. They weren't reacting. They were executing. From deep behind the asteroid fields, more ships came. These were larger, slower, and darker. The kind of ships no one in the galaxy had ever seen. The kind of ships no one believed humans could build. Terran dreadnought-class destroyers. Some of them hadn't moved in years, hidden in black zones kept secret by Earth's defense corps. But now Earth had called and they were rising. The TNS Leviathan moved first, almost a kilometer long, shaped like a blade with fire inside. Its hull was layered with armor never recorded in any alien database. Plasma pulsed inside invisible chambers, glowing red through cracks in the hull. Every other dreadnought adjusted course when it moved. The Leviathan was old, silent, and deadly. Kultarak watched it on the screen. His voice broke for the first time in decades. "What is that?" Commander Varric whispered. "That is not a warship. That is punishment." The Terran dreadnoughts formed a wall, not a tight box, not a trap, just a slow, deliberate front line. One by one, each dreadnought took a place beside the others. TNS Retribution, TNS Ironhold, TNS Vengeance, TNS Eclipse, TNS Leviathan. Behind them, human carriers opened, unleashing wave after wave of drone swarms. These were not simple drones. They moved like packs of living things hunting together, shifting as one. Alien destroyers tried to shoot them down, but the drones moved like light. Every ship they touched blinked out, erased with surgical precision. Zarn's 164 Victories had never prepared them for this. Their fleets were used to domination, but now they were just targets. Admiral Briggs, aboard TNS Ironhold, watched as the formation completed. Her voice echoed calmly, wall in place. Distance. Locked, all cannons charged. Captain Doyle's reply came from the Retribution. Execute grid burn. The galaxy had never heard those words before, but they would remember them forever. The dreadnoughts fired in sequence, not all at once, but with rhythm, boom, boom, boom. Each pulse hit a different sector of the Zarn fleet. Each blast erased multiple ships. Alien screens were filled with warning lights. Command links failed and formations fell apart. The Terran wall advanced. Not fast, not loud, but final. Kultarak shouted, "Target their lead ship, fire everything." The Zarn fleet focused all firepower on the TNS Retribution. Missiles, torpedoes, beam weapons. Everything was thrown at the front dreadnought. For 10 full seconds, the ship disappeared in a cloud of light and fire. Varric whispered, "Did we get it?" The screen cleared. The Retribution was still there, not even a dent. Its hull shimmered like a storm, absorbing the energy, releasing it through vents like it meant nothing. Then it fired again. One pulse, 3 enemy ships gone. Kultarak stepped back. "This is impossible." Back on Earth, the Defense Corps watched in silence. They were not cheering, not celebrating. This wasn't glory. This was necessary. A message. Earth had kept quiet for too long. They had watched the galaxy play with power, start wars, burn planets. But Earth remembered its past, and so it built quietly. The dreadnoughts were not just war machines. They were warnings turned into steel. Now they were awake. The Zarn fleet tried to retreat. It was too late. The human fleet didn't chase. They just kept walking forward. Like giants, slow and unstoppable, alien ships turned to flee, but found other Terran ships waiting in the distance, smaller, faster, with names the galaxy would soon fear. TNS Phantom, TNS Widow, TNS Hunter's Wake. The trap wasn't around the Zarn fleet. It was above them, below them, behind them. They were already surrounded. Before they fired the first shot, and now, the dreadnoughts had risen. Nothing could save them. The sky above Earth had become a graveyard of burning metal. Zarn ships tumbled in silence, some with holes clean through their hulls, others already dead and drifting. The firestorm had begun, but the Terran dreadnoughts didn't stop. They didn't roar. They didn't shout. They moved with focus, their weapons firing in rhythm, each blast like a drumbeat of judgment. Boom, 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 and with every beat, more Zarn ships disappeared. Admiral Kultarak stood frozen on his bridge, watching the chaos unfold. No pattern, he muttered. No delay between reload. His crew tried to track the human weapons, but they moved too fast, too clean, too silent. Each dreadnought fired different weapons. Some launched energy spheres. Others cut ships with invisible beams. A few just pulsed once, and entire clusters of ships went dark. It didn't matter what the Zarn threw back. Human armor held. Missiles exploded harmlessly against the dreadnought's skin. Energy blasts faded. Before reaching their targets, the humans weren't defending. They didn't need to, they were correcting. Captain Doyle watched the battle unfold from the Retribution. Sector C9 cleared. His officer reported. Proceed to C10. Doyle answered calmly. There was no emotion in his voice. No excitement. He wasn't here to win a war. He was here to end one. Across the field, Terran drone swarms moved like tornadoes. They didn't fly in lines. They spun, twisted, dove, and then disappeared just before crashing, only to reappear on the other side of enemy ships, leaving sparks and broken hulls behind. The Zarn fleet was breaking. Their formations were gone. Their backup ships were vaporized. Their commanders screamed over comms. Regroup, hold line, redirect fire. We need reinforcements. But there were none. No one was coming because no one wanted to face what Earth had brought. The galaxy had watched too long. They saw what the Zarn had done to others. Now, they watched what Earth was doing to the Zarn. And they stayed silent. In the orbit above Earth, fire and light danced like a storm. But in the center of that storm, the Terran ships moved like they were gliding through water, calm, cold, calculating. Every shot had a purpose. Every dreadnought followed the grid burn pattern, not one weapon wasted, not one movement off course. On board the TNS Vengeance, Admiral Ray spoke into the fleet channel, sector sweep complete. Her voice was sharp, precise. We continue to Sector D4, another officer asked. Do we pursue those trying to escape? Ray's reply was simple. No, she said. We let them crawl away. Let them speak. Because Earth didn't want silence. Earth wanted witnesses. Back on the Zarn flagship, Commander Varric was pale, his hands trembling. We've lost half the fleet, he whispered. They're cutting us apart like we're not even enemies, just obstacles. Kultarik looked around at his broken crew. He had never tasted defeat. Now he was choking on it. This was supposed to be our fastest victory, he growled. We were supposed to crush them in one day. Varric looked him in the eyes. They crushed us in 1 hour, and he was right. The battle had started just minutes ago, but the Zarn had already lost more ships than they had in any war before. Earth's fleet was not fighting to survive. They were fighting to erase, to end the myth of Zarn domination in a single strike, and it was working. The firestorm raged on. Alien ships screamed across space as they exploded. Some tried to ram the Terran vessels. It was useless. The dreadnought's armor didn't even crack. Instead, the attackers vaporized on impact. Inside the TNS Eclipse, Captain Hart gave the next order. Deploy seismic rounds. Small canisters dropped from the ship, drifting slowly before activating. Each one released a pulse that bent space itself. Enemy ships nearby were crushed from. The inside twisted by invisible forces. No wreckage, no escape, only silence, and then it stopped. The Zarn fleet stopped firing. What was left of them tried to pull back, engines burning hot, trying to flee Earth's orbit. But the Terran fleet didn't chase. They just hovered, watching, waiting, silent, like judges, like gods. Kultarik collapsed into his chair, staring at the stars. This can't be real, he whispered. They were just humans. But now he knew the truth. Humans weren't just fighters. They were survivors, thinkers, builders, planners. And when pushed far enough, they didn't break. They evolved. They rose. And when they finally struck back, they did it with fire, steel, and silence. The Zarn had always been the tide. For centuries they washed over worlds, unstoppable, endless, drowning every defense in fire and blood. But here, above Earth, the tide had turned, and it would never return. Kultarik gripped the arms of his command chair so hard his claws bent the metal. His chest heaved with rage, with fear. The galaxy had always whispered of human unpredictability, but he had laughed at it. He thought humans were nothing, weak prey in a forgotten corner of space. Now those whispers rang like thunder. Across the void, the Terran fleet shifted. Their dreadnoughts, their carriers, their hidden destroyers all moved together as if guided by one mind. It wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was deliberate. Every Terran ship locked into a massive grid across orbit forming a perfect net of firepower. Captain Doyle aboard the TNS Retribution looked over the tactical map. His voice was steady, calm. "They've begun to run." Admiral Briggs from the TNS Ironhold answered. "Then we show them what running costs." The Terran fleet activated its next phase, and the tide changed. Drones swarmed in endless waves, not like machines but like predators. They sliced into enemy groups, herding them where the dreadnoughts wanted. Alien ships that tried to break away were pushed back, penned in like cattle for slaughter. The Zarn fired desperately. Hundreds of weapons blazing, thousands of missiles streaking across space. But the Terran grid bent space itself. Every shot slowed, warped, and died before reaching human ships. Kultarek's crew shouted in confusion, "Our weapons. No impact." Shields collapsing. Multiple sectors gone. It didn't matter what orders he gave, the tide no longer belonged to him. On the TNS Eclipse, Captain Hart whispered the order. "Release the Nova sequence." From the belly of the ship, a row of long, cylindrical warheads launched. They didn't aim at ships, they aimed at space itself. When they detonated, the black void glowed white, bending reality. Entire Zarn squadrons were pulled into cracks of light, crushed in silence. Not even wreckage remained. Kultarek fell back in his chair, eyes wide. "This isn't technology," he whispered. "This is sorcery." But it wasn't. It was human engineering. Simple, brutal, efficient. The kind of weapon a race built when it had been preparing for extinction its whole history. The Terran fleet advanced, sector by sector. The Zarn were erased, not defeated, not broken. Erased. In the Galactic relay stations, other empires watched. The broadcast in horror. Some turned off their screens, unable to watch. Others leaned in, whispering among themselves. Humans. They hid this. If they can destroy the Dominion, who can stop them? For the first time, the galaxy trembled, not at the Zarn, but at Earth. Inside the Retribution, Captain Doyle stood tall. "Keep them alive in the outer sectors," he ordered. "Make sure they escape." A young officer frowned. "Escape, sir?" Doyle's eyes hardened. "They need to run back home. They need to tell the galaxy what happened here, because Earth didn't want to just win. It wanted to be remembered." Admiral Briggs gave her fleet one last command: crush their core ships, and the Terran dreadnoughts obeyed one by one. They locked onto the Dominion's largest warships, the symbols of its 164 victories. They fired, and in seconds, those proud ships were gone. The burning banners of the Dominion fell silent. Kultarek screamed, "Fight to the last! Show them the Dominion does not bow." But his crew looked at him with empty eyes. There was no fight left. The Terran fleet had already taken it. The turning tide swept across orbit. The Dominion, once the terror of the stars, was now prey, and Earth, once ignored and dismissed, was now the storm. The tide belonged to humanity, and it would never turn back again. The Dominion flagship still burned bright in the center of the battle. It was larger than most fleets by itself, a fortress in space, its hull plated with centuries of stolen technology, its banners glowing with the symbols of 164 victories. To the Zarn, it was a god among ships. To the galaxy, it was proof of their endless power. But to Earth, it was just another target. On the bridge of the TNS Retribution, Captain Doyle's eyes narrowed as the flagship came into view. "Lock course," he ordered. The Terran fleet shifted around him, moving into formation. Dreadnoughts clearing a path like wolves, letting their alpha step forward. The silence across human comms was absolute. No cheering, no panic, no fear, only focus. The Dominion flagship turned slowly, its cannons glowing hot, preparing to fire everything it had left. Admiral Kultarek stood at its heart, claws gripping the rail as he shouted, "This is the Dominion's honor. We will not die crawling. We will crush their lead ship and tear their planet open." His crew moved with the desperation of cornered beasts, loading weapons, rerouting power, shields pulsing at full strength. The entire Zarn fleet had been reduced to fragments, but this flagship still carried the pride of 164 victories, and it would fight to the end. The Retribution advanced. It did not rush. It did not weave. It simply glided forward, slow and inevitable. Every cannon on the Dominion flagship opened fire, streams of plasma, missiles, energy beams. It was a storm of light and fire. For a moment, the stars themselves disappeared under the barrage. Commander Varric on the flagship's bridge shouted with joy, "We have them. The ship is drowning under our fire." Kultarek's eyes gleamed. "Yes, finally we bleed them." But then the storm cleared. The retribution was still there. Its hull glowed faintly, releasing absorbed energy through vents. The ship completely untouched, and its main cannon lit up. One beam fired, it cut through space and ripped a Dominion cruiser in half behind the flagship, not even bothering to strike the flagship itself. It was a message Earth was not in a hurry. The humans wanted Kultarek to watch. Doyle's voice echoed calm and cold through the comms, broadcast directly into the Dominion's command deck. "You brag of 164 victories," he said. "This will be your 165th and your last?" Silence filled the flagship. Kultarek's rage burned hot. "You dare speak to me, human? I have burned worlds you cannot imagine." His claws slammed the rail. "I am the flame that rules the stars." Doyle's voice didn't change. "Not anymore." The retribution fired again. This time the beam struck the flagship's side. Shields shattered instantly. Hull armor tore apart. The great Dominion ship groaned, the sound echoing even across the void as systems overloaded and fires spread through its decks. On the flagship's bridge, alarms screamed, smoke filled the air, crew stumbled. Varric turned to his admiral, voice breaking. We can't hold, Admiral. They're too strong." Kultarek roared. "No, we are the Dominion. We cannot be broken." But his words were swallowed by another blast. The Retribution's drones swarmed, tearing chunks of armor away, piercing deeper into the ship's belly. The Dominion flagship that had flown undefeated for centuries was now burning. Its banners fell. Its glory turned to ash. Kultarek staggered, gripping his chair as explosions shook the bridge. The pride of the Zarn died inside him. For the first time in his life, he felt small, he felt weak, and he hated it. On the Retribution, Doyle gave his final command. End it. The Terran dreadnoughts. Core cannon charged, a soundless roar that shook the stars. Kultarek looked at the screen. His burning red eyes filled with rage and despair. "This is not possible," he whispered. "We were gods." The cannon fired. Light swallowed the Dominion flagship. In seconds it was gone. No wreckage, no survivors, no echoes, only ashes of arrogance left behind. Across the galaxy, the signal spread. Every empire, every ruler, every soldier who had once feared the Dominion now saw the truth. The Dominion was dead. Earth had killed it and nothing was left. The firestorm cooled. The battlefield was quiet. The Terran dreadnoughts stood in formation, silent giants against the stars. They had not just won, they had ended an era. The Dominion's arrogance was gone, and in its ashes, only Earth remained. The battlefield was silent. Where? Once 4,000 Dominion ships had filled Earth's orbit. Now there was nothing, not wreckage, not debris, not even ash. The Terran fleet had erased them all. Only the black steel shadows of the human dreadnoughts remained. Unmoving, watching, silent, in the command deck of the TNS Retribution, Captain Doyle stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes on the dark void where the Dominion had once been. "Status," he said calmly. "All sectors clear." An officer replied. "No enemy contacts remain." Admiral Briggs's voice came through from the TNS Ironhold. "Steady and cold, it's finished," she said. "The Dominion is no more." For a long moment, no one on the Terran side spoke. No one celebrated. No one cheered. Because this wasn't victory. This was warning. On Earth, in hidden bunkers and deep cities, leaders and soldiers watched the feed in silence. They knew the galaxy was watching too. Relay stations across 10,000 systems had already intercepted the battle. Every empire, every warlord, every ruler now knew the truth. The Dominion, the terror of the stars, the empire of 164 victories, had been destroyed in a single night. Not beaten, not defeated, erased. On the Retribution, Doyle gave his final order. "Transmit, A." Young officer hesitated. "Transmit what, sir?" Doyle turned, his face like stone. The message, across the galaxy, screens lit up, comms crackled, and in every language known, the same words appeared. A voice spoke, calm, steady, unshaken. "This is Earth." The galaxy held its breath. "For too long you believed we were weak," the voice continued. "You believed our silence was fear. You believed our quiet meant we were nothing." The images of the battle replayed across the stars, Dominion ships blinking out, dreadnoughts advancing, the flagship exploding into light. "But hear us now," the voice said. "We are not weak. We are not prey. We are not afraid." A pause, heavy and sharp. "If you come to our skies with chains or fire, you will leave with nothing." Kultarek's last moments flashed, his ship burning, his eyes filled with rage and fear. "If you attack our world, we will erase your fleets. If you threaten our people, we will erase your name." The silence that followed was deeper than any sound. Across empires, rulers stared in fear. Generals clenched their fists. Soldiers whispered in awe. The galaxy had just seen the impossible. The invincible Dominion was gone, and Earth stood in its place. The message ended with one final line. "Do not mistake our silence for weakness." Then the broadcast cut. The Terran dreadnoughts remained in orbit, their black hulls glinting in the starlight, like guardians watching over Earth. On alien worlds, reactions spread like wildfire. In the throne room of the Varic Lords, silence fell as their king crushed a cup in his hand. On the icy moon of Kel, miners who had once feared the Dominion cheered, screaming into the frozen wind. On the capital world of the Arkan Syndicate, warlords whispered with fear. If humans could kill the Dominion, they could kill anyone. The galaxy had changed forever. Back on Earth, General Reeves stood inside Leviathan Core watching the final reports come in. "Losses?" he asked quietly. "Minimal," an officer said. "None of the dreadnoughts breached. Drone casualties only." Reeves nodded slowly. He turned to the wall where a flag hung. The old flag of Earth, blue and green against the stars. He whispered to himself, "It's done. The galaxy will never forget tonight." In the shadows of space, the dreadnoughts began to withdraw. One by one, they returned to the dark, fading back into asteroid belts, deep bases, and hidden vaults. They didn't linger. They didn't boast. They simply vanished. Only Earth remained visible, a blue and green world spinning in peace. But now every star in the galaxy knew that peace was guarded by fire. That silence was guarded by steel, and that Earth's strength once hidden was now burned into memory. The Dominion's arrogance was gone, only ashes remained, and from those ashes, a new truth rose. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy would never be the same again.